Hey guys, in today's video, I bring you an exciting and breathtaking story. Let's meet Leland Marlowe, a man who, after losing his wife and sinking into a deep depression, found hope when he rescued an abandoned puppy. But when a tragic accident led to a near-death experience, Leland discovered a powerful and life-changing spiritual truth. What he saw next to Jesus and the divine message about the eternal love and spiritual value of animals will leave you speechless. So, before we start, leave your like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content like this, and activate the bell to receive all notifications. Now, get ready for this intense and surprising spiritual journey. My name is Leland Marlowe. I'm 55 years old and I live in Holland, Michigan. If you had asked me a few years ago if I believed in miracles, I would have laughed and changed the subject. My life was full of logic and routine, and I was a skeptical former history teacher, always looking for proof and facts. However, what I'm about to share doesn't fit into any of those categories. It's a story about loss, love, and a near-death experience that changed my outlook on life, love, and even the fate of our faithful four-legged companions. It all started when I lost my wife, Elaine, to aggressive cancer. She was always the heart of our home, a woman whose presence brightened even the cloudiest days. Her diagnosis came like a storm, and in a matter of months, she was gone. Grief swallowed me. Each room in our house held a fragment of her, the perfume that still hung in the air, the smiling photographs on the wall, the books with pages marked by hands that I would never hold again. My routine was reduced to waking up, sitting on the couch and watching something on television, just to fill the deafening silence. I only went out for essentials, avoiding friends, family, and even daylight. I was adrift, aimless and unwilling to find one. It was during one of these obligatory trips to the supermarket that my life took an unexpected turn. The afternoon was cold and cloudy, and I walked slowly, carrying heavy bags and the weight of my own discouragement. It was then that I heard a soft cry, almost muffled by the wind. I looked around, and next to a trash container I saw a small cardboard box. Inside, curled up and shivering, was a dirty, hungry puppy. He looked at me with those huge, trembling eyes, and something inside me, something I thought was dead, shifted. "Hey, little guy." My voice was hoarse, more to myself than to him. The cub took a tentative step, its tiny paws sinking into the damp cardboard. Against my better judgment, I took off my coat and rolled it up. Come on, before I change my mind. At home, I prepared an improvised corner in the kitchen. With each high-pitched, clumsy bark, I felt my heart give little jolts. It felt strange and uncomfortable, like my apathy was being pushed away, inch by inch. For the first few days, the puppy turned my house into a battlefield. Pee on the carpet, chewed shoes, barking in the early hours of the morning. Anne, who barely had the energy to get up from the couch, now found myself running after a small hurricane of fur. The name Noah came up almost spontaneously. Perhaps it was influenced by the Bible that my wife used to read, the same one that now remained closed on the shelf, covered in dust. Noah, like the biblical character, was a promise of a new beginning, a rebirth amid the deluge of my grief. There were days when I regretted it. "Or why did I bring you here?" I muttered, as I cleaned the floor for the third time in the same day. Noah just looked at me, his head tilted to the side, as if trying to understand the reason for my frustration. He didn't know he was biting more than furniture. He was biting at the bonds of my isolation. Over time, the initial chaos gave way to a surprisingly comforting routine. Short walks around the neighborhood, training sessions to teach basic commands, small daily victories that I previously couldn't even imagine celebrating. When Noah finally learned to sit on my command, it felt like I had won a marathon. I found myself laughing at her antics, something I hadn't done since Elaine left. He had a unique way of filling the silence. If I sat on the couch, I soon felt the weight of her small, warm body settling next to me. During cold nights, he curled up at my feet, and his soft breathing became the soundtrack to my less dark dreams. And then, without me realizing it, the dog I had temporarily taken in became my anchor. He brought color to my gray days and warmth to my cold soul. I still missed Elaine, that would never change, but now there was something, or rather, someone, that needed me, and this simple truth was the first step towards my healing. The day of the accident started like any other. The sun shone shyly, and the autumn air brought a pleasant coolness. Noah and I went for our usual walk, taking in the neighborhood's quiet streets, He seemed especially excited, pulling on his leash and sniffing each fallen leaf as if he were on a grand adventure. I smiled, enchanted by his contagious energy. It was impossible not to be carried away by his simple, uncomplicated joy. As we reached a crosswalk, I looked both ways. Everything seemed safe. However, as soon as I took the first step, Noah broke free of his leash, darting toward a squirrel crossing the street. "Noah, come back here," I shouted, but he was blinded by excitement. My heart raced and panic took over. Without thinking, I ran after him. The next few seconds unfolded in slow motion. The sound of screeching tires on the asphalt, the metallic shine of two cars approaching too quickly. The first sudden swerve caused the driver to lose control, and the second vehicle came straight towards us. Noah was hit first, his small body thrown into the air. The impact caught me immediately, throwing me against the asphalt. I felt the world shatter around me, the cold concrete beneath my face, the metallic taste of blood in my mouth, and then silence. There was a moment of absolute darkness. There was no pain, just a feeling of emptiness, as if I were suspended in nothingness. I tried to open my eyes, but there were no eyes to open. My body seemed distant, a vague memory. All that existed was the absence of everything, and strangely enough, it brought a deep calm, as if I was finally free from the crushing weight of reality. Suddenly, a soft light began to shine in the distance. It was not dazzling, but welcoming. It grew slowly, enveloping me in comforting warmth. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I was safe. And then, in the midst of that light, a figure began to form. Something inside me knew exactly who it was, even before its outlines became clear. The figure that emerged from the light was of indescribable serenity. His presence emanated a warmth that was not just physical, but spiritual. Her skin seemed to radiate a soft luminosity, and her eyes, of a tone impossible to describe, carried the entire universe in their depth. I didn't need words to recognize who was before me. It was Jesus, not in the way I have seen him represented in paintings and sculptures throughout my life, but in a living, real and immensely loving way. Leland. His voice sounded not like an ordinary sound, but like a vibration that touched every part of my essence. "You are not alone." My legs, or what I felt were my legs, gave way. I was on my knees, overcome by the divine presence. I failed. My life was a waste. I couldn't save Noah. I couldn't save Elaine. He approached, and in a gesture of immense compassion, touched my shoulder. At his touch, my guilt and pain seemed to dissolve like mist in the sun. Nothing is by chance, Leland. Love is eternal, and everything that is loved has its place in the kingdom of God. It was then that I saw Noah. It appeared among fields so vividly green that it seemed almost ethereal. His fur was shiny, and he ran toward me with the same joy as always. I fell to my knees again, stretching out my arms, but he stopped next to Jesus, sitting, his tail wagging calmly. "You found him because he was sent to you," Jesus continued. "Animals possess a pure spirit, a divine spark. They are part of God's love manifested in creation. Noah was his four-legged angel, sent to guide him in the darkness." Tears streamed down my face, not from sadness, but from a joy so deep it seemed impossible to contain. "And now? What happens now?" Jesus bowed, his eyes reflecting eternity. "You still have a mission. Share this truth. Show the world that true love never dies and that even the smallest being carries a divine purpose." The light around us began to pulse, and a delicate tugging sensation enveloped me. Noah gave a short bark, as if to say everything would be okay. And then, everything fell apart in an explosion of white light. The awakening was brutal, unlike the peace and lightness of the spiritual world. Returning to my body brought a flood of physical pain. My eyes slowly opened, and the cold light of the hospital momentarily blinded me. The incessant sound of machines and monitors filled the room, bringing me back to reality. Every muscle felt like it weighed a ton, and my breath came in short, uncontrolled gasps. "He woke up, call the doctor," a female voice sounded, and soon the face of a worried young nurse appeared in my field of vision. "Mr. Marlowe, can you hear me?" I wanted to respond, but my voice seemed to have gotten lost along the way. After a few seconds, I could only nod slightly. Fragments of the accident began to emerge. The noise of the cars, Noah's body in the air, the impact, the emptiness. A sob escaped my throat, and for a moment, The pain of reality threatened to drown me again. What about Noah? My voice was hoarse, almost a whisper. The nurse hesitated, and fear chilled my blood. The dog was taken to a veterinary clinic. He's injured, but he's alive. The vets are doing what they can. The mix of relief and worry hit me hard. Noah was alive. The promise of Jesus still pulsed in my memory, but the reality seemed so fragile. What if I lost him now? What if everything was just an illusion created by my wounded mind? The following days were a test of faith and endurance. My recovery was slow and painful. Fractures, bruises, and the constant feeling that my body was trapped between the physical and spiritual worlds. I slept little, and when I closed my eyes, the image of Jesus and Noah in that heavenly field was repeated like an anchor for my soul. Finally, after much insistence, I managed to get a friend to take me to the veterinary clinic. Seeing Noah was like breathing for the first time. He was bandaged, his small body covered in bandages, but his eyes were still shining. When he saw me, a faint wag of his tail made me certain that the miracle was real. I held his paw, and there, in the silence of that small veterinary hospital room, I promised that I would never leave him alone again. Recovery has been a long and arduous road for both me and Noah. Each day was a battle against physical pain and, at times, against the discouragement that still lurked in my mind. At the hospital, physical therapy was strenuous. Learning to walk again, regaining muscle strength, and accepting my body's temporary limitations required more than just physical endurance. They required an emotional resilience that I didn't know I still possessed. Noah was also facing his own healing journey. His paws were bandaged and he moved with difficulty. At first, he needed help even to feed himself, but even in the midst of pain, he never stopped looking at me with those eyes full of trust. It was as if he knew, somehow, that this suffering was temporary and that together we would overcome it. During my first few visits to the veterinary clinic, the doctors suggested that Noah might not walk normally again. He has suffered many injuries, Mr. Marlowe, they said, trying to balance frankness with hope, but I refused to accept this reality. He will walk. I know you will, I replied more than once, my voice carrying a firmness that surprised even myself. Eventually, we were released to continue our recovery at home. The house, which once seemed like a silent tomb, was now a healing space. I adapted the environment to facilitate Noah's movements. I placed soft rugs so he could crawl without hurting himself. I improvised a ramp at the front door and spent hours at his side, encouraging every little movement. Come on, kid. Just one more step, I said, holding a soft toy in my hand as he struggled to get up. And one day, he succeeded. It was a small, staggering step, but it was enough to make my heart explode with joy. Noah walked again, and with every step he took, I too moved forward on my own healing journey. Our walks began again, at first short and slow, then longer and full of life. With each step, with each new achievement, the promise of Jesus reverberated in my mind. I knew we were being guided, that we were not alone. Faith, which was once just a shadow in my life, was now a living flame, lighting the path ahead. The years passed, and Noah became more than just a dog. He was my companion, my confidant, and in many ways, my savior. Our connection went beyond what words could explain. He seemed to understand my feelings before I even recognized them. When the days were hard, he would curl up next to me, his steady breathing bringing me back to the present. When memories of Elaine flooded back to me, he knew exactly how to break the cycle, whether it was with an unexpected lick or a toy brought to my feet. But time forgives no one, not even the four-legged angels. Noah started to age. His steps, once quick and full of energy, became slower. His hearing had weakened, and his eyes, although still bright, showed the signs of age. I was traveling the same path I had already traveled with Elaine, the fear of loss, the tightness in my chest whenever he breathed more slowly. But this time there was a difference. I had the promise, the vision of paradise, the certainty that true love transcends even death. One cold morning, I noticed that Noah didn't want to get up anymore. I lay down next to him, wrapping my arms around his small body, just like I did the day I found him in that cardboard box. He looked at me, and in that look there was gratitude, love, and, above all, peace. "It's okay, kid. You can rest," I whispered, as tears ran down my face. "I'll meet you on the other side." His last breath was soft, as if he was just falling asleep. I held his paw until the end, feeling the life slipping away, but also an almost palpable presence of comfort around us. It was as if the light from that near-death experience was there again, embracing us. The farewell was difficult. The house had that silence again, but this time it wasn't a suffocating emptiness. There was a serenity, a certainty that Noah was at peace, waiting for me in that heavenly field where I first saw him next to Jesus. And strangely, this certainty not only comforted me, but also drove me forward. After Noah's departure, I felt that Jesus' promise needed to be fulfilled. I couldn't keep this experience to myself. The soft, loving voice I heard during my near-death experience constantly echoed in my mind. Share this truth. Show the world that true love never dies. I started writing little memories in an old notebook. At first, they were just disconnected words, fragments of memories and emotions. But as the days passed, the words began to flow. I wrote about Elaine, about the grief that almost destroyed me, about the miracle I found in a cardboard box next to a trash container. I wrote about the accident, the spiritual experience, and the message of Jesus. Each page I filled seemed to ease the weight off my chest a little more. One day, I decided to share one of these texts in an online support group for bereaved people. To my surprise, the response was immediate. Comments started pouring in, people thanking her for the message, sharing their own stories of love and loss, especially those involving pets. It wasn't long before I was invited to speak at local meetings, churches, and even animal welfare events. Every time I took the stage, I felt a mixture of nervousness and purpose. I held Noah's small collar in my pocket, like an amulet, and began my story. My name is Leland Marlowe, and I met divine love through a dog named Noah. And then, he told everything, not just what happened, but what it meant. He explained that animals are more than companions. They are heavenly gifts, silent guides that often carry the mission of healing us and teaching us about unconditional love. The message spread. People started reaching out to me, some just to share their stories, others looking for comfort. I created a small support group where those who had lost their pets could speak freely without fear of being judged. I found purpose where before there was only emptiness, and with each new story I heard, I felt the presence of Noah and Jesus, as if they were guiding me on this journey. The most surprising thing was realizing that my testimony not only comforted others but also healed me. The pain never completely disappeared, but it was transformed into something greater, into compassion, into empathy, into shared love. I became a bridge, carrying the message that true love is eternal, and that, yes, one day we will all be reunited with those we love, including the little four-legged angels who have marked our lives. Today, when I look back, I see a journey marked by pain but also by redemption and love. My life took a turn I could never have predicted, and it all started with a little puppy abandoned in a cardboard box. Noah was more than a dog. He was my angel, my guide, and, without a doubt, a divine gift. And this certainty brought me a peace that I had never experienced before. My house is now full of life. After sharing my story, many people began seeking my help in rescuing and caring for abandoned animals. I turned my backyard into a little sanctuary, where injured dogs, cats, and even some birds find a temporary home until they are ready to go to their new families. Each of them reminds me of Noah, and each successful adoption reinforces the message that every being raised with love has a greater purpose. I started speaking again at churches and community centers, but I also started visiting nursing homes and hospitals, bringing trained therapy animals. Seeing the sparkle in people's eyes when petting a dog or feeling the gentle touch of a cat on your lap is a constant reminder that true love heals. Animals, with their simplicity and innocence, have a unique ability to reach the human heart, even those most hardened by pain. I still keep Noah's collar with me. Sometimes, when the wind blows a certain way or when the sun breaks through the leaves of the trees in the late afternoon, I feel its presence. It's as if he were by my side, silent, but always present. And when I miss you, I remember Jesus' promise, reunion in heaven, where eternal fields await us, full of peace and joy. The emptiness that once consumed me was filled with purpose. I know that when my time on this earth comes to an end, there will be no fear. There will only be expectation. The sight of Noah running towards me, his tail wagging, his happy bark echoing in the celestial realm, and once again, I will stretch out my arms, knowing that true love is never lost, only finds new ways to blossom. This is my story, a journey that began in the abyss of loss, but found redemption through a furry little miracle. And now my mission is to share this truth. Love is eternal, and reunion is a divine promise that we can carry in our hearts until the end of time. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.